Hello and welcome, everybody. So, my name is Steven, and this is the show where we bring together experts to break down some of the most fundamental topics in HR. So, today's topic is individual development plans, and we have three amazing guests with us who will be sharing their wisdom with us on this topic. I'm going to go ahead and intro them right now. We have Millie Chrisman, who is the founder and consultant at Marathon Growth Management. We have people and culture leader Ryan Archibald, and we have the talent retention Sherpa himself, Stephen Farber. So say hello, all three of you. So glad to have you. Let's jump right into this topic, individual development plans. Um, I think we've all heard a few different definitions, or like there's a lot of different plans that you can make in an organization that go towards development. I want to actually just start with like the definition. Like, let's get really base level. What is our conversation going to be like today on what kind of plan? Ryan, would you mind just starting us off? What is an individual development plan?
For me personally, it's what do I want to accomplish while I'm with a current employer,
Yeah,
and it's a timeline of how to get there.
love it. Yeah, I mean, straight to the point. What do I want to accomplish with my employer? Does it extend ever beyond that? I mean, what are you guys' other thoughts? What actually is this plan we're going to be making? Millie or Steven, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, for me, when I was first thinking about this, a roadmap came to mind. For me, it's a personal roadmap, particularly when you're maybe new in a role at the onset of something. It's best in concert when you're starting something, so that you know what it is you're trying to learn and gain. So it could even be starting a new business. When I went full-time into consulting, for example, I had my own individual development plan, and I actually wrote out some things I wanted to learn more about and why, and built one for myself. So outside of the corporate traditional environment, but it continues to be my personal roadmap.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a super versatile tool. I love the idea of a roadmap. Um, Ryan, Millie, I think you hit on it really well. As I think about the people who are listening today, I think there's going to be kind of two motivations almost, right? Like there's going to be people who are listening specifically for why should I have an individual development plan? And like, how can I create one for myself? But then, we're in HR here. And so there's also this interesting question of why should I roll these out to my organization or help within my organization? Um, how can I bring these plans and help employees set them within my org? So I'd love to kind of address those together. First of all, like why, like Steven, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, why should I personally have an individual development plan versus just kind of living my life and kind of taking things one day at a time?
It's a good question, Stephen. And I think, I asked myself the same question whenever I was given my first one at a company years ago. I don't know. They could have been rolled out a little better, but from what I understood, it was where I was supposed to end up in this company eventually. I think a better way to put that is it's giving you as an employee purpose and motivation for what you may want to do. Like, this is more than just a job for you. This is going to be a productive, interactive career, and it's showing that your employer is investing in you. And I think from the employer side, it's investing in the employee. It's helping them put together a plan, because as an employer, I don't think you can afford to just plan on turnover. And I think a lot of us do that unintentionally, but you want to put a plan in place for this employee to be a partner with you for the life of the agreement. So I think an IDP is an excellent starting place for that kind of discussion to open up and happen.
Yeah. So I'm hearing like some of the benefits we're going to get out of having this in your organization is, maybe reduction in turnover because people understand where they're going. Let's keep talking about it. So what are some of the other kind of benefits you think an organization would gain if all their employees had this sort of plan, this roadmap?
Well, I'll throw out organizational capability. This is one of these win-win efforts. Number one, the individual can shorten out their learning curve frequently in role. When you start having a really clear idea around what do I want to learn, what do I want to do, and you kind of are able to see that intersection of stuff you like to do with stuff you really want to learn, and you have the support because it's written down, so there's more than one person supporting you, the likelihood of that happening and happening quickly is going to happen. So if you're better in your role quicker, and that happens across the organization, think about the impact to organizational capability, in addition to that sort of what I call that stickiness, meaning you're going to want to stay. You're going to want to feel, you will feel like somebody cares about you as a person. And while there's no guarantees, I think that's where that linkage to reducing turnover comes into play and creates truly that win-win for the organization. So win for the employee, win for the organization on a really short-term basis. These IDPs can be certainly longer term. When you start thinking about a personal roadmap, they can span years. Frequently, colloquially, they're used in 12-month periods, and there's frequent check-ins, which really makes them that much better. You know, it's how they're implemented, sort of like to Stephen's point, you know, how they're rolled out and how they're implemented make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we'll dive more into the implementation towards the end of the conversation, because I think that's going to be key, right, to all this, as you guys know. But Ryan, I want to give you the final word on just benefits. Have you seen any like benefits personally, like in any organizations you've worked with, when you see an individual who's acting on this development plan and maybe they're more motivated, or what kind of benefits have you seen?
The main benefit I've seen is from the management side. When a certain employee maxes out in a certain position, they've learned everything, they're at the top of that pay scale for a certain position. And like, okay, so what do I do now? That sparks that conversation to tell the employee, hey, Ryan, you've maxed out. This is where you're at. Where would you like to go next? And then that empowers the employee to say, wait, I get to choose? Hold on.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd love to transfer into more HR focused and getting away from recruiting, or maybe they decide, heck, I want to go into finance or accounting. Like, how do I get there? And then that manager can say, okay, let me figure out the best way to get you there. And maybe that manager comes to HR and just says, hey, this is where this employee's at, and this is where they want to go.
Yeah.
What's the best way to get them there? And then to actually execute that, at least for the employee to say, it just reinforces like, wait, I said something and they acted on it. Maybe I can do more in this organization than I ever thought was possible.
Yeah. Love that, Ryan. I'm kind of sensing a theme here too of like, you're creating a future for these employees inside the company, letting them know that exists. So let's pretend for a second that I am an employee in one of your organizations, and I'm not really concerned with individual development plans. Like, maybe I don't really have a plan. Or maybe I'm super motivated and I do have my own plan already made without HR's help, right? Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what is HR's role in this? Because again, it is called individual. It's an individual development plan. So, Stephen, Millie, what are your thoughts on this? What should HR be doing? Is it just motivation? Are they helping form the plans? Are they writing the plans themselves and handing them to employees? Like, give us a view of that.
So I'll go first, if that's okay, Millie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'd actually love to hear what you have to say about this, because I think it's probably case by case. I know that I've been in organizations where HR was the person who actually rolled them out and implemented them and performed them. And I've been in roles where HR had nothing to do with it at all. So assuming that you are new to HR, accidental in HR, or you're reading the article or watching this, and it might be for the reason that this is something you're in charge of, then, well, that's the case. So depending on what level of role, really depending on what level you're expected to be a part of it, it could be very different per organization. I don't know, Millie, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's a great question. And I think that the best ones are always the ones where the employees are in the driver's seat. I always use the metaphor, be the captain of your own ship. And the more vested that the employee is in creating their development plan, the more likelihood it's going to happen, and the more likelihood it's going to happen well and quickly. So it becomes, it's harder when there's a mandate. Got to have IDPs for everybody. Whenever things are mandated, there's always going to be some adoption. There's going to be some fallout. I think it across the board. And sadly, HR is left being the enforcer, which is exactly where we don't want to be. Where I think we can play a great role is helping open other people's eyes as to what are the possibilities out there of where you want to go in the company. To Ryan's point, when people max out relative to their learning in a particular role, or maybe a particular pay grade, HR can be the one to say, well, hey, here are the opportunities. And then that becomes a career pathing opportunity, which creates excitement and engagement. And then if they can drive it back around to excitement, engagement, ownership, where the individual is owning the plan, then HR can, I think, provide a bit of a framework of, hey, think about these three things when we're creating this plan. What do you love to do? What are you good at? What are your aspirations? And then HR can say, hey, and I'll tell you what the company needs us to get better at doing. And then you marry up those 3-4 things, and then that becomes a series of targets. But the more employee involvement and the less people can get hung up on framework and formality and forms, and just, I'd rather have people complete one goal well than write down 10 of them and then they feel terrible because they only got 6 out of 10, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm anti HR being the police. So I hope that sits okay with our audience. But, the police do other things. HR should just not be that.
I love it.
I love that. Yeah.
I'm seeing some thumbs up on both ends here. Brian, not being the police. How can we keep kind of the police mentality out of this whole process?
I think Millie hit it on the nose. Is just avoiding that formality, because it ultimately comes down to asking that employee is like, what motivates you? And I think that's a great conversation to have, like with a new employee onboarding. And if you have current employees, just ask them now. Just make sure they're on that right path, so they're not going down a rabbit hole they don't want to end up.
Yeah.
And then having that flexibility to say, okay, maybe you don't want to go into payroll. You want to go somewhere else. Let's course correct right now before it gets too late.
Yeah. Awesome. I kind of get this picture of it being an invitation rather than any sort of mandate. We can talk a little more later around like incentivizing and kind of trying to encourage, which I think will be interesting. But let's get a better picture of like what this plan actually looks like. Again, we're not mandating anything. Maybe we're providing some basic forms or something that they can use. But let's imagine for a second, you had the reins. You could be the dictator for a second and create everyone's plans for them in terms of like the structure and accountability and stuff. So what would you say makes a great IDP? Millie, I'd actually love to give this one to you first, and then we can hop over to Stephen.
Okay, so let's go back to that whole win-win thing, because I think the most important thing I ever learned in graduate school was from a strategy class where they talked about, hey, winning truly in strategy means that all parties won. So employee, employer. So what I would do is I would have the HR folks talk to the business and think through, what does the organization really need in terms of capability? What kinds of skills? They ought to have that. So those things should show up on an IDP. And I think that whatever the core competencies of the particular role that the employee is in at the moment, getting good at that particular role should be part of an IDP. Not only that, but part of an individual development plan should be gaining role, I'll call it role mastery, just getting really good at being that widget maker or whatever it is that you do. And then from there, it's okay, what parts of it are you good at now? What parts of it do you need exposure to or help with? And then you can identify some areas to work on. So get good at the role, because that helps the company. Get the employee's opinion around, hey, what part of this sounds easy? What part of this sounds tough? Like, where do you think you might need some additional support, us to lean in, whatever you want to call it, so that they have their input. And then I would have a little forward-looking, future-focused area to say, hey, employee, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you think you want to do next? What's on the horizon? And that's where the HR can help them discover all the different things, because they may not know.
Yeah.
They may want to shift, and like in the earlier example, hey, let's go into finance, let's get out of payroll, what have you. So HR can sort of say, hey, let me show you what the menu really looks like. And then through that discussion, figure out, beyond getting good at your current job, organizational win, how can I help you get your dream, employee win?
Yeah.
And then the marriage of those things, and again, a reasonable amount of it, I think is a fabulous foundation for an IDP.
Yeah. If I'm hearing you right, Millie, you're talking a 12-month plan, and it has like a list of important skills and competencies on it. And at the end, there's maybe, what's your next role, and what's your dream role? Kind of.
Perfect.
Does that sound kind of right? So
it's a beautiful thing. And length is important, because you don't want it to appear daunting or overwhelming, because you want it achievable. You want it attainable. You want it achievable.
Yeah. Stephen, what would you add? You're the dictator now. Millie has passed you the dictator, I don't know, crown or whatever it is.
I would be overthrown on day one, so that's just not going to work. But I just not really anything I would want to add to what Millie said. And by the way, Millie, we talked a long time ago whenever we first met on LinkedIn, right. And Millie is absolutely brilliant. Everybody, just want to let y'all know that. If you haven't connected with her, connect with her. She has a huge history of HR. And
I can endorse that.
Did you just call me old?
I can't win. And I want to be careful with my comment here, because this might be more in the realm of implementation. So I won't really go into this, because I think that's probably the last thing we're going to talk about, right? So
share what you got to say. Say what you got to say, Steven.
Gotcha. So I would say there's one thing that Millie did say that I caught on. I resonated with everything she said, but one thing she said that made a lot of sense to me is when you're having this discussion. And what I mean by that is, don't just hand somebody an IDP and tell them to fill it out and turn it in. There's a number of reasons why that's a terrible idea. You're wasting everybody's time, including your own. But when you have a discussion with someone, you're able to actually phrase those questions in a way that are meaningful from them. Like, sure, have a format, have something templated so that you're not creating something individual for every single person. No, ain't nobody got time for that. But when you are asking them about how they feel about where they currently are and where they want to go, take a couple minutes to really think about this person. Hopefully, as HR, you've done your homework on who they are as much as you can. And when you talk to them, when you ask them questions, ask them in a way that resonates with them. Maybe they're a very direct person, and you can tell that. It's very easy to tell when you're talking to a direct person. You feel like you're wasting their time. Get right to the point. Where do you feel like you're at? How do you want to be? Where do you want to go? If it's somebody who's a lot more thoughtful, maybe more people-oriented, maybe ask them, where would you like to be? where you feel like you can have the most impact. Doing that's going to get you more realistic feedback than just handing them the form. I'll tell you the worst way it was ever implemented with me is I was given the form, told to fill it out, and then I went to a meeting and I was told that those weren't real goals. And that was crushing. And one of my goals was just to get out of debt. I was like, that would be huge for me. And I was told, oh, you know how much I have on my credit card? This ain't nothing. I'm like, thank you for devaluing my goals. Whereas I would say it doesn't matter what they put on that paper, even if to you it doesn't make sense, it matters to them. They've taken the time to write that down or tell you about it, take that, and then build upon that. So yeah, more in the realm of implementation, but just value the person that you're developing, even if it looks like they don't want to be there. Make that an experience that really gives them an idea of staying with your company. If they see that you see something in them, they're going to start believing in themselves, and confidence is a win-win for everybody on the strategy side of things. That's my piece on that.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, Stephen. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yep.
I apologize that they laughed at your goals. We will support your goals, Stephen.
I think getting out of debt is a fabulous goal, and every country should adopt it.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll put that in the next panel. That'll be right. So this concept has come up a few times. I think everyone said at this point, who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What is your dream? Right? That's such a huge question. I mean, it's so easy to go to someone and say, hey, where are you at? Right? And you can kind of measure it and see. It's very apparent. But it's like a fundamental, it's like the question of humankind. Who do you want to be? We're all asking it to ourselves constantly. I think HR is actually like in a pretty unique position to, at least from a career perspective, help some people through some of those questions. So if who you want to be is kind of like the end form, like the beginning and end of this development plan, how can HR have those conversations and help someone realize where they want to go? I want to get a variety of thoughts on this, but Ryan, I'd love if you could start us off on this. How could you bring that out of somebody and help them realize where they want to go?
Oh, it's a simple discussion with the leadership team that just says, how do you understanding where they're at in terms of their own development plan? Telling them, hey, what's your purpose? What motivates you? And then get them inside their head and just say, oh, maybe they just got out of debt or something. And just saying, okay, that's great to hear. I loved hearing your stories. How can we give that to their employees? My own personal success is making it personal for the leadership team. Instead of just saying, hey, this is what I want to roll out. Just saying in terms of long-term and making sure our organization, our workforce is not only happy, but capable. How do we get them to where they want to be, and also leverage their skills for the organization? And just getting them inside their own head and just saying, hey, how did you get here? What goals did you accomplish? Yeah. And they talk about their own plan. I said, okay, let's work together to figure out how we can roll this out to the employees. Yeah. If they're all on site, it might be an all hands meeting. If they're all remote, maybe it's a similar setup like what we've got here or something. And just making sure, I think there's no better way to roll it out together with the leadership team. Let them talk to the employees about their own story, because then that might connect with an employee that just says, hey, Stephen got out of debt and he was able to save money for his next financial goal at this organization. So maybe I can too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But something you said, Ryan, really made me think about this. I think an important thing to realize is that HR is not grading like a report card, somebody's individual development plan. I mean, there's performance reviews, and those success metrics are set up independent of this. This is really what somebody wants to get out of this role. This is a much more, I'm going to use the word selfish because I can't think of a better word, tool. And honestly, let's stick with debt. Okay. I'm a big old passionate get out of debt freak as well. But let's say that getting out of debt would really be the thing that allows engagement to happen with that employee. And now you've got an employee who, as an HR or as a manager, can help connect the dots between, okay, employee, if you get out of debt, let's talk about how this job can help you get out of debt. And in order for you to maximize everything you can out of this job, let's think about stuff you may need to learn, et cetera, et cetera. All the while, this job is serving the purpose of helping you get out of debt. And if the employee can see that link between their very passionate personal goal, getting out of debt, and doing well at the job, guess what? They're going to do well at the job, most likely. And Stephen, you would have too, you know? And that would have been a much more meaningful thing because it was so personal. And you know, when you think about engagement and engagement surveys and the linkage to productivity, what's the basis of engagement? Meaning. I have found meaning. I have found connection. It's important to me. I mean, lovely what the manager thinks, but it's important to me. And I think this is huge. So I think if we really get over I think we just have to think more creatively in today's workforce and really expand the boundaries to include what in a former life we might have thought exclusively to be personal goals. Maybe we want to put our child through college. Maybe that's our goal. Well, that's a great goal.
Yeah.
Can I just say something on that real quick?
Yeah, please.
So I just want to make a sales metaphor here because it's like, and I'm sure all of us all day long are probably pitched on LinkedIn by, I like to call them the connect and pitch type. Connect and pitch is a bait and switch. That's what my mentor says. So it's kind of similar whenever you sit down for an IDP, and if you have somebody across from you give you what they believe to be the right goals or have formatted in a way that you should write down, who cares what they think? It's about you. Naturally, we kind of only want what we want. That's kind of to be human. So as an employer, if you help somebody achieve a goal that's important to them, and I agree with what Millie said, you can always tie it back to the business. You can always, if you want to get out of debt, let me show you how to be the best darn salesperson here. If you want to be able to put your kid through college, let me show you how to rise through the ranks and get a better salary. All of it can be tied. But when you actually tie it to that personal link, you create loyalty, and that is so important to retention right now. If you can prove to that employee that you helped them with something important, they are going to, even if the guy down the street is going to pay you $1 more, which is a big reason why a lot of people are leaving right now. They won't even look a second way. They will stay with you because they know you care for them, that you love them, that you want them to succeed. Mm-hmm. That is the difference between a forward-thinking company and a company that's just doing IDPs because they have to. Turn it into some. Sorry, I'm getting passionate here. Yeah,
go for it.
That's pretty much it. It's just make it personal. Millie, that really resonated with me. And Ryan, what you said earlier, when you talked about taking a personal experience and then making it resonate with someone else who has a similar issue, that's huge. We're all human. We want that connection. Whenever you can prove that connection exists and you can help somebody succeed, they're going to remember that forever. Way more than the guy who paid them $1 more an hour with better benefits down the street. They don't care. You can be fine. So.
Yeah.
Just to play devil's advocate here, which that's why I'm here at all. It's just to stir the pot.
Always one.
Yeah. Let's say you get this IDP back, or the employee's presenting it to you, and their number one goal is, I want to work at a company that is, a retailer in their corporate office in marketing. But right now they're working at your company, which is, some B2B company, and they're in sales, right? And they say, I want to get this job in a year. And so they're identifying to you right off the bat, like, hey, I want to leave your company next year. And by the way, I want this role to help me leave your company and take my skills elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So again, devil's advocate here. I want to hear on this.
Can I selfishly jump in here?
Yeah.
I would say do everything you can to help them make that goal, because they're probably going to change their mind. If I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of that person, if I was and usually that's me because I'm like, oh, I got to get the truth out. Otherwise I'll think about it and won't sleep. Like, hey, I took this job because it was available. I probably won't stay longer than a year. If my boss then sat down with me and said, great, I'm going to help you do awesome while you're here. And hey, maybe if you want to stay with us to the end of it, that's up to you. But let's make sure you have a great experience here. By the end of that year, I'm probably gonna be like, how do I get to marketing in your company? Maybe I didn't like marketing. Maybe I'm more of a service manager. It's just whenever you be their friend, that loyalty speaks way stronger than what they thought they wanted. It's not gonna work for everybody, but being the devil's advocate and then playing the advocate of the devil's advocate tends to work. So be a double advocate. That's what I gotta say.
Yeah. 100%. And plus, then your organization gets high productivity out of that person for a year versus low productivity for a year. So again, it's a win-win. And then that person might realize that it's not quite doable in 1 year, but maybe they can sit at this company longer until they fill a few more gaps, and then the transition might be more doable. So there's just no downside. I think the real sell is going to be making sure people managers understand the value of committing their time against this effort. I think that's more of a sell than HR, more of a sell than the individual. It's how do we make this part of teaching our people how to be people managers?
Yeah. Great. Ryan, I want to bring you in here too. Any other thoughts on this kind of argument? Any dissenting opinions? Totally okay. Would be. I'll support
okay.
you if you want to say.
I think it's just building off what Steve and Amelia said. It's a great chance to compare notes. That employee may have a detailed plan of what that year looks like. To say, hey, okay, show me your plan. And then as a manager or HR, hopefully you know what the organization's capable of, and just say, okay, this is what I know for sure. The rest of it, I got to work on that, but let's make this happen. Because even if at the very basic, the word of mouth on that employee may attract more talent to the organization.
Yeah.
They might say, hey, I told them I'm going to leave in a year. They're helping me anyway. Get over here and they'll help build your skills up as well.
Yeah, that's great. Love that. Word of mouth, your employer brand, just picking off the ground. So let's come back to you, Ryan, actually, to start off this next kind of question. I think we have a good idea of what this should look like, how to start implementing it, and the kind of goals that you should help people set. How do we actually make sure that what starts out as a plan actually is translated into some sort of a real development for this employee and increase productivity for the organization? So how do you help people follow through on their plans, really, is what I'm asking. Ryan, what are your thoughts on that? And then maybe Steven has some more opinions.
It all starts with the commitment from leadership. There's going to be managers in there that just say, well, what if I don't want to help Steven leave within a year? Or what if I don't want to do that as well? Just helping them understand our part as leadership is to support them, is to almost essentially work for them. Give them the tools they need to succeed, whatever their goals may be. If it's saving to get an HR certification, get out of debt, to move on to another organization. Our goal to support them will help the organization as well. And getting as detailed as you can, depending on the company, just says, hey, by helping Millie get out of debt, this is how it supports the organization. By helping Steven buy a motorcycle.
That one was for me. That was me, Steve. I'm good.
Oh,
well. The other this is how it is. It's going to take a lot of preparation on HR's part to connect those dots, but all it takes is one bad apple in leadership, and that's going to sour that team, and that's going to leave that team to probably looking for employment elsewhere to build their skills and to add value somewhere else.
Yeah. So I'm hearing it takes a lot of buy-in from everyone in the very beginning to make sure these plans we get followed through on. What would you add to that, Steven or Millie? How do we turn these plans into actual action, make sure they happen?
So two things come to mind. One is where's senior leadership in all this? Do they talk about these things? And do they talk about it regularly? Is it woven into the fabric of the culture? So are there town hall meetings where these things are brought up? Are there focus groups when leadership does visits? Do they ever sit down one-on-one and go, hey, how's your plan?
Yeah.
The other piece is sometimes we get hung up in names and forms and paperwork and stuff. So maybe we think about a name that fits with our company culture. And maybe at, our company, maybe we call these personal goal sheets or personal goals, or, my time list, whatever it may be, but something that shows that something that's in it for the employee, and the employee has a corporate partner in a manager or in a peer or somebody else, back to that accountability partner word. And again, HR, it somehow has some formalized and regular way of just checking in on, is it happening? How are you feeling about things? I think what leadership does is critical. And then how easy is it to do is critical. If you have both of those things, again, no guarantees, but the probability of adoption is huge. So how do you just make it easy? And sometimes the hardest thing to do is think of how to make something easy. But that's what I think HR should do, is put their process hats on and just go, man, we know our culture. How can we just make this easy peasy?
Yeah. Turn it from a marathon into like a 5K. And then
exactly right. You have 6 5Ks and all of a sudden you've run 5 5Ks and you've run a marathon,
Yeah. Awesome. Stephen, any last thoughts on this, turning these plans into action? I think we've got a lot so far.
Really, just to piggyback, as much as everybody loves that word, off of what Millie said, is really make it easy. This may or may not be applicable, but I heard about this the other day and I thought it was insightful. Hamburger Helper, way back in the day, were trying to figure out how to really push their products out. And they landed on the fact that moms and kids, those two groups, were the big buyers in for a lot of reasons. It was helping moms, helping kids. So they went on and they created 30 brands of Hamburger Helper, and then their sales tanked. And they went and pulled a bunch of research together, and they're like, what's happening here? And what they had done is, by making 30 different varieties, people were just getting stressed out, confused, and skipping it completely and just buying, I was going to say great value. I don't know if that existed back then. But the point is when we're talking about development plans, make it simple, make it easy, because we're in a world where that's expected anyway. So the simpler that you can make it for somebody in implementation and rollout and process is where you're going to get the best results. That's all I really would add on that.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, they've got, I guess, really they're doing their whole other job on top of this plan. And so the simpler you can make it, the more likely they are to fall through. So kind of the last topic on this, this is kind of the last major topic for us, is around incentives. So I'm going to open this up to whoever wants to share a thought. Nobody has to if they don't want to, but how do you view, like, should HR come in and incentivize these in like a real way? Like, if you complete your plan, you will get X, Y, Z, or we will support you in completing your plan by paying for you to go to a conference, or here is a learning tool you can use to support you in your plan, and invest in that. Or at the end of some of these plans, are they saying you will get a raise because you completed your plan, right? Like, is there any money that should go into these programs? And I'll just open it up to whoever has a thought.
That doesn't sit well with me on first blush. I'm sure there's an argument. There's always an argument for anything. I don't like the idea of confusing personal motivation with company incentives. Somehow it can, I think it can messy the linkage. I do like the idea of funding support tools. I do like the idea of funding experiences. So for example, if we have an employee who would benefit from a particular experience, like learning how to use a 3D printer if they work for an architectural firm, then I might say, okay, we're going to pull you off of what you normally do. We're going to pay, your 4 hours this afternoon that you normally would have been doing this design work. And we're going to schedule you over here with an expert, and we're going to let you do this. And then later on, we might have you do something else. So funding those experiences, which will cost a company, maybe they need to purchase an additional piece of equipment. Maybe they need to bring in an expert to do a webinar. That's the kind of economic resourcing I would do against that. But I would just want to keep it very clean between, hey, our goal is to help you get what you want to get out of this job. It's all about you. And what we have to do it, if it costs us a little money, that's where we do the funding.
We'll do that. Yeah.
Those are, I don't know. Anybody have any other thoughts?
I agree with you, because the IDP is the incentive. It's we're doing this for you. I think where companies run into trouble, number one, if you incentivize it, and I could be wrong, there could be a very good reason to do it, but if you incentivize it, you're going to have to keep incentivizing it. Otherwise, there's going to be a year or a couple quarters where people are mad that you did not hand out those $50 Amazon gift cards again. And you're also going to get terrible data, because they're going to do whatever you want. If you pay them, they'll go across the company for a street just to get rehired. It doesn't matter. If you give them money, especially money, they're just going to do it so they can get the money. It's a carrot on a stick thing, versus you properly communicate the value of the IDP. They're going to do it because they want to do it. And I think that's the position. And then to Millie's point, I had 2 IDPs at the company that I was mentioning. The second one was great because the manager asked me, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, you seem like a really creative guy. I would love to see you in marketing one day. How do you feel about that? We got to talking, and then he went out and got me a copy of Advertising by Ogilvy, because he's like, well, I read this when I got into marketing. I think read this book. If it makes sense to you, we'll talk about what that looks like. And oddly enough, I read the book. I was like, I don't want to go into marketing. He's like, okay, let's talk about something else. It cost him $3 to give me that book. Call it an incentive, but he didn't tell me that he was going to do that. He just said, you know what? I think I have something that will help you decide. And I think he was the kind of person that just invested himself in his people. As a result, everybody loved this person. Yeah. So, I don't think you should incentivize it. I think it should be the incentive. And if that's not the expectation, it needs to start heading that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Ryan, I want to give the last thought to you on this topic.
I'm going to build on the book story Stephen told. If it pertains to the development plan, if they want to go into marketing, if they want to transfer into that, is there a book or an experience with a 3D printer that can help get them there? Specifically to HR, there's HR certifications saying once you get to a certain competency level, accomplish these smaller goals, the company will pay to have you sit for the exam and get you the prep. And then that'll help unlock the next stage of the development plan to further develop their HR competency or whatever their plan may look like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. Well, I think we nailed that really well. I want to give each of you a final moment now. This is the most powerful moment in every live stream. So this is your last 1 or 2 sentences where you can say your last bits of advice to somebody who is looking to either create their own plan or they want to roll it out in the organization. So and your goal is to bring a tear to my eye, right? Just kidding. So we're going to start with Stephen, then go to Millie, and then Ryan will give you the closing thought there.
Awesome. Well, and don't worry, everybody, I'll be easy to go after on this. So, but I would say an IDP, and there's check out the article on Eddie. I was actually looking at it earlier today. It's really well laid out. It's very easy to understand. You can create one. There's lots of information on how to do that. Just make sure that when you're rolling this out, this is an opportunity to really affect someone's life, even beyond the workplace. Like, you have that kind of I don't want to use the word power, but you can leverage that moment to really create an amazing experience, return on investment, and just overall win-win situation for both parties. Go into it with that attitude, regardless of the attitude that you get back, and you'll be amazed at just how effective an IDP can be, because a lot of businesses aren't doing it like that. Be the change that you want to see. Literally, as corny as that is, that I think that's exactly what I would say here.
Thanks, Stephen. Millie, what are your last bits of advice?
I think those words are terrific, Stephen. HR really is good. HRs really are good at influencing others. Typically nobody really reports into you in the organization, but you influence the whole organization. And so this is an opportunity for HRs to sit with every employee that they come into contact with around these and say, look, this is an opportunity for you to make this way more than a job, and talk to them about why they're here, what's the meaning, and whether that's the getting out of debt or whether it's to learn how to use a particular piece of equipment. What do they want into it? What do they want out of it? And remind them that, hey, this is more than a job. This is you fulfilling your own goals to get you what you want out of life. This is a big deal. And oh, by the way, you get a paycheck too, and you get to work at a great company. But man, this is a big deal. And I personally want to make sure that you get all of it, which is why we're going to take a moment and think through, what do you want out of this? This is a gift. And really go in with that giving them the gift mentality piece, keeping well away from the police, you have to do it. That's, I think, a big, huge win. And I think that's how you will impact the hearts, and then the minds will follow relative to the employee base. And that way everybody wins. I just think these are terrific. And, if the name sounds too formal and it's going to make things too hard, change it. Let everybody call it what they want to call it, but have the meaningful conversation. Have it and come back to it. Don't just have it and then forget it and never see it again.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Millie. Last word to you, Ryan.
Well, I'm inspired after those two. I don't know how much I can add. I think now's the time to start that conversation. I love what Millie said about essentially hacking a leadership development plan, or an individual development plan. What does that look like? Whether you need to take the keys on your own development plan and drive with it, or if you need to roll it out at your organization, knock on that executive's door and just say, hey, I've got an idea, and just have that, explore it with them. And if you can launch it with the executive team support, get them to tell you their stories to help connect with the employees, then see where the road takes you.
Yeah, love that. Just get started. Perfect. Well, we always have this final plug at the end. If you want to learn more about individual development plans, check out our encyclopedia article on the subject. This video will actually be posted there. And connect with these members. These are fantastic people. They're great minds in HR. We love talking to them and hearing from them. So you can access their member pages, HR Mavericks. Find them on LinkedIn. Thank you all for watching, and thank you, panelists, for being here. We hope that everyone has an amazing rest of their days. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.